Happy Tuesday, ladies and gents. Watchers in the Basement Universe. I am Franklin Cooper.
I am Tristan Jones.
I'm Marcy Gonzalez.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement. What's up, everybody? We're covering episode 5 of season 5 of Yellowstone. And this episode was called Watch 'Em Ride Away. And man, there is every meaning in that word, in that phrase for this episode. First and foremost, thanks to Tristan and Marcy for being here today. We're going to break down all the main scenes in Yellowstone, talk about what's to come and all that good stuff. So, ladies first, Marcy, what were your thoughts on this toxic ass episode?
Oh my gosh. At first it felt like it was going to be another one of those slow ones where nothing really happens. And again, it didn't feel like a lot of the plot points were really furthered, but those last 20 minutes was pretty insane. It was hard to watch and just peak Beth toxicity.
I thought this was an episode where Yellowstone kind of really got his groove back into the elements that really made us love the show. Which is like the things that are happening on this ranch, like this, like just the understanding of the land and the customs and the traditions. Like that's why I really like fell in love with the show, is like the cowboyism, and stuff like that. We need more of that. I think the show obviously ventured off in like these different, avenues, these different conflicts that took it in these different places. But I think this episode, and to a degree last week, it's kind of getting back to the essence of Yellowstone. I texted a friend who was kind of complaining, saying that the writing was, a little bit weaker this season than it had been in past seasons. I was like, hey, Yellowstone is back. Like, this is a Yellowstone episode. Loved it. Like Marcy, I didn't think that it moved. It didn't move like the bigger plot points that much in this episode, but it's the smaller, incremental plot points that I think move, like just seeing like the different relationships and seeing how they could change or evolve over the course of the rest of the season. So enjoyed it.
Tristan, Marcy, to piggyback off of y'all, I really enjoyed this episode too. It seems like watching the last 4 weeks, I felt like I was watching 4 different shows. I feel like Monica and Casey had their own show. I feel like Jamie had his own show for a little bit. And I felt like John had a little spinoff to the side. So for this episode, to see everybody together interacting with each other, even though it was kind of limited, but to see that, it reminded me that, man, this is a very talented cast, and I can't wait to see them interact more as a unit from here on forward. I feel like there was a lot of separatism with the characters early on, and like your boy or your friend Tristan, I was kind of concerned too with the writing. But man, did they come through with the triple double in this episode, man? They came through and yes, they didn't advance too much with the storyline, but you get nuggets, especially with some flashbacks and some character crossings to really see what's to come towards the middle and end of this season. So I'm very pleased with this episode. And
also, if we just look traditionally on 10 episode seasons, think Game of Thrones, think House of Dragon, think, Succession. Yeah. Episodes 4, 5, sometimes 6 are usually where we get like these, not necessarily slower, but more personal episodes that kind of move the familiar relationships, just those one-to-one relationships forward, and not necessarily the larger, broader storyline. So this is kind of on par for really popular 10 episode season. So it's not surprising to not see a bunch of stuff happening in this episode and it still be good.
I couldn't agree more. I think I've been spoiled over the last couple of years with just great shows. Like, you have Succession, and now, we got to get to House of the Dragon late this fall and Gangs of London. So I'm so used to fast-paced action and like critical dialogue. So some of the deadpanness early in the season, I needed a reminder how great this show was. And this past Sunday, I got that swift reminder really quickly. So to start with this episode, the opening scene in this episode is another flashback with Beth and Rip. So if you guys remember, early on in the season, we had a flashback of Beth and Rip. It looked like it was Beth and Rip's first dates. Beth essentially asked Rip out for a date. They go to a neighborhood, not neighborhood, but like a bar down the road in Bozeman. Young toxic Beth is born. There's some awkwardness with the bartender. Rip's not feeling this, and Rip runs off. And then Rip heads back to the ranch, and lo and behold, one of the cowboys from the bunkhouse. I don't think he's there now, but Rip sees him with Beth, hugged up, they kissing and stuff. And to connect with this scene, um, again, it looks like I'm not sure how far past that first date was, but it looked like it was pretty fresh because you see that same cowboy in this scene. They look like they're about to go cold camping, as we find out this episode in present time. And you think Beth is going to say hi to that cowboy, but in her little way, it looks like Beth is trying to apologize in her little way without apologizing by checking in on Rip and saying, "Hey, get back safely." Tristan, what was your thoughts about that flashback?
I think they're using these flashbacks between Beth and Rip, as well as we could talk about the ones with John as well, and just like the different happenings happening around the ranch or the different obstacles and different issues that happen around the ranch, but specifically with Beth and Rip. I think it's showing. I think they're using these flashbacks, and I could be wrong. We'll see by the end of the season if they're using them to show like the growth between their relationship, or to also kind of provide more context for like how Beth is now, and how far she's come, or the shortcomings that she still has and still has to work through. Like we can see, like these aren't things that just popped up. Beth has always been impulsive. She's always been super prideful. She's always been abrasive in these things. So it's no surprise that she's this way at 40. Like she was that way at, I don't know how old she is in these flashbacks. Let's give it 16, 15, 16, whatever. So I think they're showing it. I hope they're showing it at least to document their relationship. Like for all things considered, they have a beautiful relationship. It's one based on trust, communication, some empathy, and it wasn't always like that. We remember episode 1, like this really toxic, almost violent relationship between them, and I guess we get to see the origins of how that came about because they talk about it in season 1, but we obviously we can't see it. But in season 5, now that we've seen the growth, literally from them going from this really violent, toxic relationship to what seems like a very loving marriage, it's just providing that context. Like I think we need those type of things in a story this rich. So again, I hope it's been used as like a parallel of like, hey, this was them 25, 20 whatever years ago, and this is now, and we can see how far they both come. Rip was a remarkably ignorant about just anything outside of ranching. He knew nothing. This is an orphan with no formal education of any kind, it seems. Didn't even know his own birthday. And now he's like wise man Rip. He's level-headed. He can kind of see the bigger picture of things. He's not impulsive at all. So it's really good to see like how far both of them have come. Not just in their statuses, but just together. So I think that's the goal of these flashbacks. So we'll see.
Marcy, what about you?
Yeah, I like that it kind of gives us a glimpse of their past, and I'm just very curious to know like why Beth is just very like having so many flashbacks and keeps thinking about the past and just kind of probably in a like regretful way and remorseful way because again she's like I'm sorry for the past, so it's interesting to see her just be so fixated on the past. And I like how Rip told her like there's really no sense of living in the past, like I'm in the here and now. So I think that's very good for him. I think he's looking forward, but at the same time I think Beth needs to do that as well instead of being so stuck in the past, because again I think all of this like dwelling on things is probably going to like come to a head in like a very dramatic way, which we kind of saw a little bit of that at the end of this episode, right?
Real quick, I think I'm going to make a prediction. I think these flashbacks and the way that it's eating at Beth, like she keeps asking him, like, do you ever think about the past? Like, hey, I treated you bad when we were kids. And Rip is just like, you know, it is what it is. And we moved on. I think by the time we get to the season finale, I think they're going to show us a flashback of her doing something really fucked up that I think Rip may have just suppressed, you know, memory wise. And I think that's where it's going to come to a head.
Or like, do you think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was just gonna say, because Rip doesn't know about like Beth's abortion or anything like that, so I'm also wondering if maybe she's feeling very guilty about that because she never told him what happened. He doesn't know. I think she said like he knows that I can't have any children, but he doesn't know why. So I also think maybe like she's feeling very guilty about that, and you know, is feeling like he needs to know about it, but she's just very like afraid to tell him because it is a big thing and you really don't know how he's going to react.
A lot of times with trauma, when you succumb to trauma and you think about the end, oftentimes you cycle through your mind about the past and how you got to a certain point. And my prediction is that she has a fear of the end of their relationship. Is why she keeps cycling back in the past of like, what could I have done differently to secure my relationship with this man that I love so much? And for somebody like Beth, who doesn't really have much regret in her life, to all of a sudden in season 5 to have this kind of regret toward, and I'm talking about regret that she can control. The Jamie deal with losing the baby and the hysterectomy, the kids, she didn't really understand the science behind that. But I think as far as Rip's concerned, there is something that I don't think we have been introduced to that's going to come out. Because there's no reason in the world why she keeps cycling back in the past if she doesn't feel like this is going to come to an end in the very near future. I was very annoyed with the Beth and Rip flashbacks until Sunday because I didn't know where they were going. I just felt like there was just flashbacks to just fill the time, and not to this Sunday. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show. Rip handling some certain situations in this very episode, it displayed a lot of patience from Rip. And now, because Rip has no patience for nobody else, not Carter, not the bunkhouse people, nobody but Beth, right? I think with John is more from a paternal perspective from John to Rip, a fatherly figure. But when it comes to anybody else, he has no patience. And when you see that flashback in the beginning of the episode, you realize why Rip is the way he is with Beth and the level of patience he has with her, because he's had so much practice with it. I mean, he literally lives when it comes to this kind of ordeal and drama with Beth. He's had so much practice. He's failed so many times with Beth. Now I don't feel like anything can really phase him because he's been through the wringer with her. So now seeing what happened in this episode, I have a better understanding of why those flashbacks are needed. And now I want more flashbacks, which is so funny because just a week ago I was so over that shit. But yeah, so I totally agree with you, Tristan, Marcy, that I think something's going to come out that's going to potentially break them. But I mean, their love is so beautiful. I mean, as crazy as it is, the love is very beautiful. I sometimes I have a question for y'all. Which relationship do y'all love more? Casey and Monica or Beth and Rip?
Casey and Monica.
Casey and Monica for you? Why?
I've had a Rip and Beth type of thing. Obviously not as intense as Beth. But you know, kind of had that, and it's great until it's not, and it gets toxic and not good for you. I think Casey and Monica seem to have a very like grown up and adult type of relationship. And I think that's probably also because Beth and Rip kind of like met and kind of loved each other like when they were like kids and teens, whereas Casey and Monica were a little bit older. So I like the more maturity that they seem to have, more so than Rip and Beth. But Rip and Beth are also just like fun to watch as a couple. But if I would have to say like a preference for me, it would be Casey and Monica, just because now being an adult, I'm like, okay, like that's the type of relationship I want. Like I've had Rip and Beth, and like it's good until it's not. I want this now.
Yeah, same. Beth and Rip are much more entertaining. I actually don't think they have a toxic relationship anymore. I think there's some. I think Beth is toxic, and I guess if two people you mix in oil and water, I guess that's toxic. But I think they have a loving relationship built off, despite their past and built off their past. So they have a much more entertaining relationship. I love watching them on scene together. Rip's my favorite character, but Casey's number two. I would rather be in the Casey and Monica relationship. It just seems like you said, like it's just a mature relationship that's been forged through obstacles that were out of their control, whether it's one person like doing providing the obstacles that they have to hop over. So I'd rather be Casey and Monica.
I'm the same. Casey and Monica for me. I'm 37 years old, man. I don't have time or patience to deal with crazy in that form of fashion. It's fun for like a one night stand, and it's fun for like a nice Saturday night leaving the club. But as far as like building a relationship with, I need that calming piece. And Monica shows that. Monica gives that, and Casey needs that. Casey's had so much trauma in his life from like seeing his mother die in front of him, going to war and coming back. Like I felt like Casey needed that calmness, and Monica offers that not many people on the show, especially from the woman variety, has in the show. I mean, we've seen from Beth's mom to Beth to Sarah Atwood. There are a lot of very boisterous, toxic women on the show, and Monica, she exhibits one of the more normal, calming presence that I think that not only Casey needs, but the viewers need as well. So, for sure. So after the Beth scene with Rip, it's now branding season, and for me, I'm far from a cowboy. I grew up in Texas. I'm far from a cowboy that a cowboy can be. But apparently this branding thing is a very huge thing in Montana, the season for it. And Rip and John are talking about how they're going to like corral all these cows and cattle and bring them back towards the south, toward the end of the ranch. Hearing that sounded stressful. Like if you're John, you're trying to run a state and hearing that, like trying to bring 15 men on the ranch, like corral these cattle and brand them, sounded more stressful than going through 2 weeks of meetings as governor. Like it just sounded like an impossible task. And this concern with Rip, this concern with John with this, and now they bring the idea of co-camping, which is, I believe, a 2-day trek through the ranch. No sleeping bags, no showers, no toilets, and they're pretty much roughing it while simultaneously bringing these cows back to the ranch. This is the cowboy shit I miss. I ain't gonna lie. This is the cowboy shit that I miss for the show. I need more bunkhouse. I need more Teeter. I need more Walker.
Yes.
I think the show is missing that, and I think, I saw the preview for next week, but it looks like you better see some drama doing this 2-day trek, and you better see a lot of bunkhouse mates characters come through in this next week's episode. What are y'all thoughts of what this could mean for the storyline for this season with this 2-day trek? I'm gonna start with you, Tristan.
To your point, I think this 2-day trek is a great vehicle for the show to reintroduce and like reintegrate Teeter and all those guys back into the main mix of the show. For John, you say it sounds stressful. For John, this just sounds like a vacation. Like it sounds like something he's familiar with and he could not wait to get back to. Like the governorship is the foreign thing. That's the stress. And he really doesn't have to do anything but sit through meetings and cut ribbons and shit like that. That sounds like that's killing him slowly. Whereas the cowboy shit is what he lives for. Like it was like Rip asked him, like, "Sir, are you going?" It's like, damn right I'm going. Like, you goddamn right. What the come on, man. John Dutton. So I think and this was episode 6. So before we get back to I think the larger issue with market equities, and also with rainwater and the alliance that they have here or semi alliance that they have there. I think this is a good next week should be a good episode to kind of see these inner dynamics between those characters that we haven't seen in a while.
Marcy?
I agree. Yes, more Bunkhouse, more Lloyd, more Colby, more Ryan. That is what I want to see. And I loved how Lloyd was so excited about it. He's like, yeehaw, cowboy shit, which is how I felt too. So I'm excited for next week's episode. I would love it if they would do away with the whole stupid market equities storyline and just bring it back to the ranch and more of like these types of stories, more so than like them fighting like this big like financial corporation. Like I want to see like more things that they're dealing with at the ranch. So I loved it.
Absolutely. So we have some comments from the podcast world. Our correspondent Brittany, who's our producer for the show. Thank you, Brittany. She says, "Rip sounds like me. I have no patience for anyone except for my dog." And knowing Brittany, that is absolutely correct. She does. She has no patience except for Miss Luna, her corgi. And then we have a new podcast on the scene. Angie says, "I agree." I think she was talking about the Rip Beth situation. Thank you, Angie, for joining the show today. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So back to the story. Yeah, man, I need more cowboy shit. I do. This is what the show. This is how the show brought me in. The ranching, the horseback riding, the action. Cowboys get into it. The bar fights. I need more of that. The market equity storyline, it's fine, but like Sarah Atwood says something the episode before, in episode 4, Horses to Heaven. She said that we have the money to fight you guys for years. And I heard that, and my main concern with that was I love Taylor Sheridan. I think he's doing a great job with this show. I don't want to see 2 or 3 seasons of market equities going back and forth. I don't want that. We need to nip this in the bud. If not this season, maybe next season, early on in the season, and move on to another situation. Get back to more cowboy shit, because with that kind of storyline, it could be long and drawn out, and you can lose people. So with the whole market equities,
I think we're done with it this season.
I hope so.
I mean, we just had 2 episodes for the most part with not really much market equities. We had like one 2-minute scene between. I forgot Jamie was in this episode.
Yeah.
After my first watch, I was like, damn, we didn't see Jamie at all. And I was like, oh yeah, he got some in his office. But I think I don't think they're phasing out market equities right now in this particular episode, but they are reintegrating like the main elements of the show, which is the cowboy shit, before they get back to it and hopefully finish that off for good. Because there's just only so much we can do with that. There's just not much. We can't grow. The show can't grow, with these corporate fights. I'm much more interested in what's happening with the natives, with Rainwater and them, and seeing that's the conflict that the show is built off of, and I think that's where they're eventually going to get back to. Maybe we have to sit and then like I said, the market equities thing is not bad. It's just like that's not the show. That's not what I want to dominate the show. I started watching this shit because I want fucking cowboy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I want. Hell, I even want the gangster cowboy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like we can get back into that shit. And I look forward to Rip like really being maximized on that front. Hopefully to kind of get rid of the market equities. But like before we get back there, like that's where we're at now, with these camping trips, with seeing like Summer come in and really start to hopefully, slowly appreciate the way of life that they have. Like that's what the show is built off of, and that's when it's at its best.
Speaking of Summer, let's talk about her real quick. So when we last left off with Summer, she gets out of jail. She's pretty much going to be the environmentalist specialist for John. She's gonna live out her sentence with John with these next 6 months at the ranch. She has a scene with Carter, which I thought was which I thought was pretty important because it displayed somewhat of a level of understanding between the two characters. Carter is an orphan himself who's now part of Beth and Rip's family. He's now been effectively assimilated into the culture now. He looks like he's holding his own as a cowboy himself, learning the ropes. Has John and Rip as a mentor. So Summer and him have a conversation, and I think the conversation opens up with, Summer asks a question to Carter about the fire amongst the pastures. What is that? What's going on with that? Why is nobody putting it out? And he's like, I want the smoke. That's about smoke. He's like, oh, it's a fire. It's happens every year. This is part of nature. The rain will drown it out. And I think he said something to the effect of like, God will take care of it. And Summer's like, well, nature. And Carter's like, it's what I said. So they're both saying the same thing, just different ways of saying it. What was your thoughts, Marcy, about the interaction between Summer and Carter in that situation?
I really like that scene too, again, for that exchange when they were talking about it. He's like, God puts it out. He sends the rain. That's how the fire gets put out. And, she said nature. And again, he's like, that's what I said. I think it's great because me as like a not very religious person, like I personally find that I find God like in things like nature. So it was just nice to kind of see that exchange and just Carter being able to impart some of his wisdom because he's usually the one asking all of the questions and not knowing. So it was just kind of cute to see him kind of like showing the newbie around and just kind of schooling her a little bit. But I'm interested to see like if there's going to be more to this forest fire storyline because we did see a little snippet of it. I think it was on the last episode at the very end. There was like a shot and there was like the smoke off in the distance and now it's closer. So I'm wondering if that's going to have more of an impact towards the end part of the season.
For me, that scene between Carter and Summer was a perfect encapsulation of one of the biggest themes of the episode, which is like this middle ground, this common ground. They are effectively saying the same thing, right? But she's speaking more so from a scientific standpoint, and he's obviously speaking more from a religious, spiritual. Just these are the things that you hear, like the God brings rain, such and such, and that would have been a great place, and hopefully with Summer. No, absolutely, she didn't. What I'm trying to say is like that would have been a good place for her to stop and say and recognize the common ground that she had with Carter, vis-a-vis really the rest of the ranch, the rest of the family, the Duttons, and so on and so forth. But she could have pressed that on more, like, hey, no, actually, it's science, right? Like things go up in the air, the clouds, and blah blah blah, and we have rain. And he just effectively like, no, God does that. So like they could have gone back and forth from that, like she does with and Beth later on in the episode. But she kind of stops and pauses. And I wonder in that moment when she pauses as Carter walks away, is she contemplating like, man, this is some really dumb shit, or is she stopping to see like we're all saying like, hey, we're really kind of saying the same. Like, so is she trying to find that common ground? Maybe she is, but it's not something that she continues to do because with John, they're talking about, branding cattle and such, and he's making basically the analogy that is no really different than you being born in the same process and a stranger slapping you and cutting off parts of you and so on and so forth. Like there's so many opportunities for Summer to be less combative, ideologically, and just kind of try to see the common ground. Hopefully it wouldn't take an ass whooping for her to see that. But like there are opportunities within this show, within this episode, where she's seeing like, hey, there's some ideological differences between me and this other person. But effectively, we have the same goal. Like with Carter and Summer, it's, hey, we're looking at this fire and we're talking about how this fire is going to get put out, right? With Summer and John, we're talking about the invasiveness of being born, of life, you know, early life, and how a lot of these things are out of your control once you're born, whether you're animal or human. And obviously with Beth later, like there's a care for like animals and such that both sides have, just in different ways. So like again, Summer gradually is finding this common ground through blood, sweat, a lot of blood. And I think she would have been better served kind of taking that lesson in the moment, in the scene with Carter. And then, you know, maybe we don't get the scene later on, like the zenith of this episode later.
Yeah, I agree. I think for Summer, you're gonna be here for 6 months. So why not use that time to like actually learn from these people, see their point? It's kind of like with John in the previous episode with the policy meeting and firing the whole staff and not giving them a chance to speak their position and kind of have a common ground and commence and come to a better conclusion of what you need to do for the education system, for solar panels or whatever. Same with Summer, man. Like you have the opportunity to like see how they live and try to get a better understanding why they do what they do, and use that for your future position as a environmentalist advisor. And to be so combative in somebody else's home of all people, like I wish it didn't take an ass whooping for her to have that better understanding of like hearing people out before speaking, being combative. Now, for TV purposes, it was great to see that ass whooping that we're going to talk about in a minute. But for the most part, I think Summer has the smartest woman in the room disease, and I feel like she hasn't been challenged enough coming up, and she's always on the defense. Like she's a protester. Like most of her adult life, she's protested and been on the fence to try to push her agendas. And a lot of times when you're protesting, you know, white picket fencing and all that, you're not hearing the other side. You're just speaking your side. And I think this is a prime opportunity for her to understand that this is the time for me to like hear their side and try to find common ground. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see over the next 6 months how Summer's going to survive this and learn from this as well.
Start by shutting the fuck up. Like she didn't even know like the respiratory system of animals that eat grass. Like, come on, man. Like these people know way more about animals than you do. Like, come on, like that's a perfect opportunity. Like, just learn. Like, there's literally no reason for her to be as combative. Like, I think there's space for her to voice her passions. Like, I understand you're a vegan and you don't believe in eating meat and eating animals and eating meat. I totally get that. Like, that's a very common thing. But even vegans, some vegans, find the time and place to insert like their reticence to eat meat. Like, and she's just, you know, she's all full speed ahead. In a sense, the show kind of places her as, you know, a parallel to Beth in a certain way, which comes to a head at the end of the episode. But we see like the seeds of that being planted. Like they're both passionate about their side, and they both can be really one-sided towards, you know, different perspectives. And that comes to a head.
Absolutely. Marcy, I have a question for you. So for Summer, what do you think, what's going to come of her character over the next 6 months of being on this ranch?
That's a good one. I hope that after this, again, she is more open to just learning from them and seeing that as an opportunity, right? That's like the basis of compromise. You learn from the other person, you listen to them, listen to what they have to say. And then you're able to present your view and your side. And then hopefully you can come together and compromise and be able to teach each other lessons. So that's what I'm hoping. But obviously, like, the show needs drama. So probably going to be some more drama, maybe not with Beth, but just other types of drama. I'm assuming otherwise, like if everything's just happy-go-lucky, then there's really no point.
Absolutely. So later on in the episode, so we all know Monica's been through a lot. She lost her baby. She had a stillborn, I guess you could say a stillborn child. And John and her son John But throughout all of this hoopla and trauma, we forget to see how Casey's doing. And the scene opens up. The next scene opens up with Casey just pretty much just sobbing, just really just struggling and not coming to grips with everything that's happened over the last, I guess, however couple weeks that his family's been through. Tristan, talk about that scene, man. Like, what did you take from that as far as Casey's trauma, what he's going through?
I think Casey has learned, either intentionally or unintentionally, due to his experiences in battle and combat, to suppress a lot of these feelings. And it's not even really just being in battle; it's just being a man. You know, it's something that is kind of drilled into us since birth, and especially in that family and in that world of suppressing these vulnerable feelings. So it's interesting that at the actual burial, no tears. You know, like as it's happening, as the body's getting laid down, as the dick putting dirt on it, no tears. Everybody else, Monica's in tears. And the only time we see that emotion is as he's alone, not thinking that his wife can see him, because when she, pops up, he, kind of jumps, wipes his face, and, the regular man shit. So I think it's an encapsulation of how hard it is a lot of times, even when trauma hits really, really, really close to home, how hard it is for some men to remove a lot of that really hard exterior and be vulnerable in front of, your wife, woman, whatever, anybody else. I thought that was really, really interesting that they made sure that he was the only time he showed some type of not grief. He showed some type of grief was far away from Monica, to the point where he felt like he had to hide that. So, and I think that definitely comes from obviously being a Dutton, not being able to show weakness. That comes from, man, maybe he's all cried out. Like you said, he saw his mother die, right in his face. Like he's seen people die. He's killed people. Like maybe as viewers, we forget that this, despite how hard Casey is, despite how much really of a gangster Casey is, that he's just a man who has feelings, and he just lost, his second son. And it has to hit, his family means a lot to him, both families. And I think also I think Casey feels guilt. I think he definitely feels guilt. Monica asked him, like, why aren't you doing your job? He's like, I don't want this to come between us. I think that there's been so many other things. I don't think Casey loved being a commissioner, a livestock agent. He's really good at it, but I don't think he loved doing it because it took him away from his family. And I think he always feared something happening while he was away doing his work, and it happened. So obviously the guilt is flaring up as well. So it's a lot of guilt, it's a lot of grief, and it's a lot of hidden vulnerability that Monica just brings out of him. Like he's able to be vulnerable around Monica in a way that he can't be around the rest of his family.
I mean, he even said it in the scene. Like he told Monica, like, if I'm there, you're not in the situation you're in. And Monica had to shut him down. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're not playing the blame game on ourselves and making it more tough on ourselves. I think it's a twofold thing too. In the beginning of the series, John and Casey are at odds. Like, I don't know how many years time had passed, but John wasn't around Casey and vice versa. And I think Casey in a way is trying to overcompensate from his childhood with the awkwardness between him and John, and trying to close that gap with not only Tate but his wife Monica. And was that season 2 where they had a little slight separation after everything happened, and Monica was in recovery, and that separation I think too was a precursor to what Casey is going through now, and with that vision he had last season, at that camp with the wolf. I think any type of threat that's gonna get away with his family, he's gonna see that as a potential end, and I think that's gonna be like just more shouldering of those boulders that he's gone through over the last couple of seasons with his family and the threat of losing his family. Marcy, what did you take from that scene with Casey?
Again, I echo Tristan's point about just him just being a man. It's hard, I'm sure, to have emotions but feel like you can't show your emotions. So I'm glad that he was able to then be a little bit vulnerable with Monica. I think we saw again that maturity of their relationship come out. So I really, really liked that scene. Even though it was just pretty short and nothing really happens, but it kind of again gives us a little bit more of a glimpse into just how they're feeling and processing everything, and just to see how they kind of deal with things as a couple. And then him again staying as a livestock agent, maybe that's also going to play into the rest of the season, right? Maybe he'll be kind of doing some more livestock agent things that will be important later on.
And also, I think it's very interesting, maybe a subtle nod that the show is doing, that Casey is being haunted by what he thinks is the future. Beth is haunted by the past. Like, so something to keep an eye on.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I didn't catch that until I didn't catch that. That's a very good point. Another thing about Casey too that I want to say, I love Casey. Casey's my second favorite character on the show. And for me, I need more Casey flashbacks. I need to see why Casey the way he is now. I need to see the remnants of the trauma that he had coming up. We saw him as a small child losing his mother with the horse falling on her. But outside of that, we don't get much. Like, I want to know why he went to war. I want to know what was the immediate residual effects of losing his mother. I want to see all of that, because it might give us an inside look of understanding Casey a lot more and seeing why he's so fearful of losing his family. Hopefully we get it maybe this season or next season. But man,
you'll see it on the next Taylor Sheridan show, 2004. Get all your everything you need right there.
Right. But yeah, I just he's such a compelling character, man, and he's very complex, and like I feel like a lot of bloodline really falls on him too. Like, you gotta remember, like, Beth can't have kids. Jamie's not a done biologically, so that aspect as well. There's a lot of like pressure on him too, and I don't think it's on purpose, but like with everything that's going on with market equities and the land, and Casey and Tate are the key. So I would love to see more of that take effect as far as like the future of this ranch falling on Casey and his son and his future sons and daughters to come.
That's some Targaryen shit right there.
Hey man, Game of Thrones got me on some like Succession type shit, bro. Game of Thrones and Succession always now I think about legacy, I think about dynasty, all this shit is because of those two damn shows, and it makes me so mad. But I love it. Okay, so let's talk about Jamie and Sarah Atwood. Man, so last time we saw them, Jamie, and I have my notes. Jamie goofy ass fell into the pussy again. So that's I have that in my notes. So from the last episode, Jamie meets with Sarah. They're playing footsies, going back and forth at the bar. They get in the bathroom stall. Beth so happens to be there. She steals Sarah's driver license, and they're getting it in. So fast forward to this week, Jamie's about to close shop at the office. Sarah comes in for a 6 p.m. meeting that wasn't on Jamie's calendar, and she pretty much unofficially says the reason why she hit on him, and was because for litigation purposes, Jamie will have to recuse himself, which leads me to believe that Sarah didn't do her homework, because Jamie comes right back and says, "Well, as a litigator, I'm not. It's going to be an outside litigator. I have nothing to do with this case between market equities and us in the ranch." So let's talk about that interaction. What do you guys think? I'll start with you, Tristan. What do you guys think Sarah Atwood is really trying to get at? And do you think that's really her plan, or she's just saying that and she has like another plan to like try to trip up Jamie?
This is Long Kong Central. I think Jamie feels like, oh, I got her on this point. That's that. No. I think she, I think she planted that seed of, trying to get him to recuse themselves and such, knowing, I think she knew that the state hires outside litigation. I think she knew that. It's long con. Now you think you won. Now I'm going to give you some more of it, and now I'm going to keep this long con going. Short scene, but it just continues to show like the lack of street smarts from Jamie. Another thing that differentiates himself from the real Duttons, the actual Duttons so much. But he's getting played, and he looks like a kid like next to her. Like she's much like, I don't know if it's because she's way taller than him, but like he just seems so kid like when she stands up and like is aggressive. And he's just like, oh my God, somebody's gonna give me something. Like, and I think also Jamie's searching for, I think I said this last week, like validation. He's searching for some type of love. He's searching for some type of being desired by somebody else, whether it be John, whether it be Sarah, whether it be whoever, Beth, whatever. But this is a long con, and I think she won the first battle in that, and she's gonna continue playing them. But I think we'll see, hopefully next episode, like what her true plan is. If not, this is something that'll be like one of the, like in the last few episode type things. Like, Jamie, you really, really fucked up, and this is how it's going to create this larger obstacle for John to jump over, John and Beth to hop over.
Marcy, what about you?
I saw that scene a little bit differently because I remember last week I was like, oh my gosh, Jamie's so stupid. He's obviously getting played. It's a setup. But in this scene, it kind of, for me, it seemed a little bit like he knew what her game was. And then he's like, oh, well, if that was your game, like, didn't you know that the state of Montana hires outside counsel? So I don't have to recuse myself. So then there was something maybe in the way that Wes Bentley played it, like his face just made me feel like, oh, like, are you like in turn playing her? Like, are you that smart, Jamie? So that has me wondering that now. But then again, also like when she starts, opening her dress, then he's like, yeah, like let's do it again, like whatever. So yeah, now I'm more interested to see what Jamie does next, especially because I read something online where somebody was arguing that they think Jamie's actually going to be the last Dutton standing and keep the ranch. So we'll see. Like, is Jamie that smart? I don't know.
I think Jamie is smart, but when it comes to women and pussy, he turns into a 13-year-old boy that's going through puberty. It's amazing to me. And I think Jamie was a virgin until he got an old girl. I know Beth teased about it in season 2. I think he was a virgin, and the lack of experience with women really placates on his lack of experience with like just relationships outside of like litigation and like being a lawyer. He has, and I should say his feeling of being needed and being validated and being being propped on a pedestal really showcases through his insecurities and even with Beth, like he dwarfed, like James not a smart dude, but when it comes to his inexperience and his insecurities, he dwarfs in size. It seems like live on TV, whether it was with Sarah Atwood, whether it was Beth Dutton, and I hope for his purpose and for his livelihood that he's really playing Sarah Atwood. But from the outside looking in, it just looks like it's more of just inexperienced Jamie, not knowing how to handle situations when it comes to like women and just being very inexperienced and looks like a guy going through puberty again.
I think Sarah, her whole goal from the jump, like when they were first watching the press conference with John, or the swearing in, and they all identify him as a mark. Like this, they just like this was like a unanimous thing amongst everybody watching. Like, oh, that's the mark right there. So that's why I think it's a long con. I think, hey, she was like, hey, we have sex once. I think she planned that. Obviously, he'll think that he has one over me because this and that. Keep doing it more and more and more. Like he's gonna start to, trust her a little bit. Maybe spill some information. Like, what, I don't know where Jamie can go wrong here. I've been silently rooting for Jamie. Not necessarily because I like his character. I don't, because he's been so far on the opposite side in the negative that, like, it has to turn for him as far as like getting respect from his family. Obviously he's respected in his job because he's really good at it, but there's not a lot of respect for Jamie Dutton, the person. So I've been kind of silently hoping that he gains some of that. And if he gets played by Sarah Atwood, then that's a wrap.
I often forget that he's AG. I often do, because the way he carries himself. He carries himself as he's a first year paralegal at a top 20 law firm in the state. He looks very inexperienced and very low of confident. I have nothing against Jamie. I mean, outside of the hysterectomy deal and then killing that reporter in season 3 or season 2, those are the only two things I really have an issue with. But again, in those situations, especially with the reporter, as fucked up as it was, in this world, he did what he needed to do to protect his family and protect the ranch. But yeah, I need Jamie to let his nuts drop this season, and hopefully it happens. So last but damn sure not least, the dinner scene. So Marcy watched this Sunday night, and I was watching the football game, and Marcy texted me. She's like, "Hey, you're gonna love this scene. You'll love this show, this episode." Beth gets it in again, and I was like, "Man, is Beth progressing again? Like, what's like?" I had it up to here with Beth as far as like the character dysfunction of the lack of patience, the explosion of her character. But I can vehemently say that this was needed, and not many times I actually side with Beth, but this was needed. So to kind of set up this scene, so Monica and Casey come over, so they have dinner as a family for one of the very rare times in the show. The Duns are together. Well, outside of Jamie, and Beth and Carter and Rip are in the other room having dinner, and John's like, "Nah, fuck that. We're gonna have a family dinner. I don't see y'all guys that often. Before we do our 2-day trek tomorrow, I want to have dinner as a family." So before the dinner actually starts and Gator brings out the food, John goes to the next room, tells Beth, Rip, and Carter to come over to the next room, and tells Beth, "Hey, you ain't got nothing to say. Nice, don't say shit at all." And what happens the minute that Beth sits down? She glances at the dinner table. She's like, "Oh, the family's here, and my dad's assistant, and the hooker." Talking about Summer. What were your thoughts initially? Let's not get to the actual scene just yet, the fight, but let's talk about like your initial thoughts when Beth uttered those words as she sat down. Marcy.
Well, John's first mistake was inviting Beth. Like, leave well enough alone. Just leave her and Rip and Carter at the other table. But yeah, as soon as she sat down, she starts being antagonistic. So that's going to set the scene for like other people to be antagonistic. So it was just kind of hilarious to watch, because I think it was a great ensemble scene, even though the other characters didn't really have like a lot of dialogue. Just seeing their expressions, that was just a really, really fun scene for me, especially Gator. She caught him off guard. Summer caught him off guard, and that was just really funny to just watch him kind of explain everything.
For me, it was like we were talking about this pre episode, but like John is essentially asking a scorpion not to be a scorpion. It's like, "Hey, we're gonna sit here and you're not gonna say anything. You're gonna be nice or say nothing at all." Like,
facts.
This is a 40-year-old petulant, very privileged, really smart pit bull. Like, and you're basically saying, "Hey, pit bull, don't be a pit bull. She's a pit bull." And what was funny to me is that Rip completely understands that Beth is a pit bull. And he completely understands that you cannot ask her to not be a pit bull. You just have to put her in a situation where she just can't bite anybody, right? John puts her across from a piece of meat, and like, this is a shark, John. What the fuck are you talking? But so that told me a couple things. One, John's kind of lost touch with who Beth is. because of who he wants her to be. Two, John also sees Beth as a child still, and the way he talks about Beth and the rest of his kids is still really patriarchal, considering they are 40 and or slightly below, or or slightly above, whatever. Um, and those are two main things that he has to reconcile, especially because Beth, in a sense, is a lot like John, and he has to reconcile those things before he puts Beth in certain positions, because Beth is going to be Beth, and he has to learn how to control that. Like, this is, we can start Russell Westbrook and ask him to be a, a setup point guard, or we can bring his ass off the bench where he's best. And we have to put Beth in the best positions to not, if not to succeed, but to not fuck shit up. And John, he's been fucking up in that in a sense. So those are the two main takeaways I got from that before we get to the major part of that dinner scene.
And it was funny because she said before, she's like, well, I'm trying to teach Carter some manners. And that completely flies out the window when they're in the actual dining room.
I think what's funny too, like 30 minutes before that scene happens, Beth and John having a conversation outside the cabin, like on the porch. And Beth's pretty much just telling John how she truly feels about Summer. Like, look, she's a snake. I don't trust her. She's, whether it was, and she pretty much named all the adversaries from the last couple of seasons. I can't remember the guy's name in season 1, but that one, the casino and the condos and all of that, to market equities to now, and she's like, she's just another one of the many characters trying to threaten your livelihood and this ranch. And you have to understand, my job is to protect you, Pops. This is my job. Now, how I do it, you might not agree with, but you know me, and putting me in a situation to where I'm going to strike and use my venom, and expect me not to use my venom, is asinine. So to have that conversation with John, that same day in the daytime, and then for John to invite her to dinner, thinking that she's gonna be in the best behavior, shows me that John thinks that he still has that power grip authority over these grown ass people. Like, they're not kids anymore. These are grown ass adults with their own ambitions, with their own mindsets and ideologies. And you have to understand, John, just because you are that dude and governor, that don't mean shit. You know what I mean? Politicians have issues with their kids, and have to keep their kids out of the media and keep their family out of media scrutiny. You're no different. You're not above that. So I thought that was very not smart by Mr. Dutton. So as we go through our dinner, so after the pleasantries that Beth shares with the table in Summer, Gator brings out an assortment of game. I believe it was dove and venison and I can't remember what else he brought. I think it was duck. And like as Gator is like listing what's on here, Summer is just criticizing everything he's bringing out. Oh, duck, ducks mate for life. Venison. Oh, so this is the thing that you killed just the day before. Dove, dove is a symbol of peace. And Beth is already at this point where she's like, man, fuck this shit. Let's go outside. What's up? So my question is, when Beth pretty much asked her to come outside, what did y'all think? How do y'all think that was going to end as far as them going outside? Did y'all think that they're going to come to a common ground? Y'all think it was going to be a combustible situation to where someone was going to storm the house and leave the house? What was your initial thoughts when they went outside, Tristan?
I definitely thought common ground was going to be reached. I just thought both of them were going to be on the ground. My experiences in life have sharpened my senses to understand when a fight is imminent, right? When violence is afoot, and when somebody says, "Hey, let's go take a walk," man, I've been in positions where I've been asked to take said walk, where I've asked other people to take said walk, where I've been a bystander to, "Hey, let's go take a walk outside." There's no other way that's going to end than in fisticuffs. Like, so I knew there was going to be violence. I knew that, But I definitely did think that I thought that was Beth's way, and this is before they actually start fighting. I thought that was Beth's way of like trying to force Summer towards that common ground. It's like, hey, we're gonna take this wall, we're gonna fight, and then like that, and then we'll be cool. I thought that was gonna be like the natural thing. I didn't see it being as long. I didn't see it being as drawn out, as kind of uncomfortable in certain ways. But I knew a fight was happening. Like there was no, I don't know what else. What the fuck you gonna take a walk in this big ass fucking 7-acre range? Like what the fuck? No. We're taking a walk to this front yard and we about to get it in on that front.
In all seriousness, and I'm gonna say this real quick before I let Marcy talk. In all seriousness, I was so turned on by that scene of them going back and forth and fighting because Beth and you know what's funny about that scene when Summer was using her jiu-jitsu, I rewound it like 4 times. I'm like, you know, I'm not gonna let this fight end. I gotta see Beth counteract this. Beth's talking shit while this girl is using jiu-jitsu on her. That's how I know she's a bad motherfucker. Like she's talking shit. This woman is a trained martial artist and she don't give a flying fuck. And I was like, man, that's a bad. I see why Rip loves this motherfucker so much. It's a bad motherfucker.
Ask a girl with 3 brothers, 2 or more brothers. Those are the problems you do not want.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I'm telling you.
Marcy, what are your thoughts?
Again, like Tristan, I was like, oh shit's gonna go down. I didn't know again it would be so drawn out. It was pretty violent. It was hard to watch at first, like, okay, like yes, get it in, like whatever. And Frank, I thought about you. I was like, oh, he's probably gonna love this. I loved when Rip came out too and was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're being ridiculous. So like for Rip to be the voice of reason, right? Like the enforcer, the guy that takes people to the train station, he's like, you look like kids. What are you doing? You look fucking ridiculous. But then he was like, okay, like you each hit each other until like you can't go anymore. That was really hard to watch. That was just so violent. And especially at the end where like Beth's going at Summer and she just like flinches. So it was good. It was drawn out. It was hard to watch. But hopefully that means that they can again find some common ground and Beth won't be so volatile towards her. But again, we don't know because later on, you know, she still says something kind of petty, even though she takes it back. She's like, okay, yeah, I forgot we're not doing this anymore.
Progress.
So hopefully that means things will calm down a little bit.
I definitely I think that was the common ground. Like I think what I really noticed on the second watch with Rip. So Rip goes from being like utterly disgusted with both of them, and tells them like I don't even see how you can respect yourself. Like this is for Rip talking about Beth. That's as far as I've seen him go as far as like actual moral disgust. But I think he sees why she does it at the end. Like when she's like, "What?" When they're going in the house, and he like kind of gives it a nod, like, "Okay, I understand." Like Rip, violence isn't necessarily a means to the end. Violence is the end. Like you said, he's an enforcer guy. You know, when he inflicts violence, it's like I'm inflicting violence, and there's nothing after this, right? Either you're gonna back all the way down, or you're dead, or whatever. Like violence is the end. And for Beth, she's using that violence to force or to demonstrate for Summer, like, hey, I'm somebody you need to respect. This is how respect is shown, right? And if you don't show respect, this is what happens. And on that point, I salute 100% because, again, from the way I understand life, like saying or doing certain things will get you hit. It's 2 + 2 = 4 to me. So there is a altruism in Beth, not necessarily continuing to go back and forth or not even engaging with Summer at the table and going back and forth about this food and such and such. For Beth, she took all that as a sign of disrespect. You're talking about the way we live, the way we eat, the way we feed ourselves, feed our children. That is disrespect. And disrespect can only be handled one way, right? so like this is Beth's altruistic way of finding common ground, of kind of being political with Summer. Like, hey, we're gonna fight this out. And then I think Beth is also that's her way of respecting Summer. It's like, hey, we went through this fight, we went back and forth. Now I can respect you now enough to engage. Now you see, after the fight, she was willing to engage with her about food, about veganism and such, like eating meat. But she couldn't do that before because she just had no respect for Summer, like zero, probably negative, negative 10, negative 20% respect. And like it took that fight for that common mutual respect to be shown. Which again, this is a big tenet of the way I see life. So I get Beth. I don't necessarily agree with the tactic. Like it's hard for me to see two dudes fighting these days, right? At 37. So it's definitely really hard to see two women fighting, like just, bare knuckles, whatever, fighting. But ultimately it led to where it should have led to, which is them kind of coming to that middle ground so they can engage on these issues. And I think you asked Marcy earlier, like, where do you see Summer's character going the rest of the season? I think that's where she's meant to be, is like a adversarial ally, right? Like somebody close to John who can push him on ways that he wouldn't necessarily be pushed because he's encapsulated in this bubble, right? This rancher's bubble and his interest here, where he's going to need somebody to say, hey, you need to think about this on the environmental lens. I teach this. I teach kids to look at the same topic through different lenses, right? We can look at it from a political lens, look at it from an environmental lens, a social lens, like just understanding these different perspectives. And you talked about it with John earlier about like firing, his staff, firing these people. He's canceling meetings. He's not going to ribbon cuttings, not going to the school. He needs somebody to say, hey, no, actually, this is how it should go, right? And somebody he respects. Clara could be that person. I think he's slowly gaining more respect for her, but Summer can be that for him on the environmental side, which he needs.
A couple points I want to make too. So prior to the fight, so we all know Monica been through a lot. I mean, losing a baby, the torture, the mental torture of regretting the decision of driving, to the hospital. And there wasn't much interaction with the family at the dinner table, but that single solidarity moment with her and Casey, kind of like looking off and like they're uncomfortable, but they're laughing at the same time. It was a moment of escape for them from what they've been through the last couple of weeks. And seeing Monica laugh made me so happy, because with Monica's character, there hasn't been much happiness in her arc. Dating back from season 1. I mean, she got knocked the fuck out. She almost died. You know what I'm saying? Her and her son Tate got attacked in John's house in season 3 when the assassins came in, losing a baby. There hasn't been much happiness for her. So to see that laugh and just see her happy made me happy, even though it came to the expense of someone getting ass whooping. But it made me happy seeing her happy. But and on top of that too, for the dinner scene, Rip's an MVP, because Rip of all people, and Marcy said this earlier, to be the voice of reason and to like show concern. I know that's his wife, but to like for him to be the person to mend everything, not John, not Casey, not even Monica, but for Rip to be that guiding light to say, you know what, enough's enough. We're gonna end this here, and drop nuggets of advice for both parties after the fight was over with. That it made sense to me seeing that flashback scene in the beginning of it, and I can't say it's really a turn of Rip's character. Maybe Rip has always been this way. I don't know, because dealing with Beth for as long as you dealt with a woman who is this prime or this toxic, you either become more of that or you become against that, and you try to find other ways of settling issues. And seeing that from Rip really made me happy. For Beth purposes, I've been very frustrated with Beth over the last really 7 to 8 episodes, because I feel like it was just more of the same. And yes, this was more violence, but it came with a conclusion and common ground afterwards. And for the way that the Duns have grown up, they, bullets flying, fisticuffs, to for her to be who she is, to me, that was a great developing moment for her, because even though she didn't respect Summer at first, to have that fight was a mark of the great debate between two ideologies, between two ways of living, and for Beth to even close the gap to say, hey, you know what I'm saying, yeah, I beat your ass, but we gotta talk about this. You're gonna be here for 6 months. We need to have some type of understanding to where this doesn't happen again. And to see that, even though it came from the result of ass whooping, but to see her grow from that and not just run off and go drink a bottle of liquor in the bunkhouse or whatever, that made me proud to see that. So that was a good developing moment for her, and for John to be so frustrated and for Rip to come and save the day, that perfect storm, which it just made for a perfect scene. So yeah. So any more thoughts about that scene?
I mean, it just goes Rip. I mean, we didn't really talk about the saddling scene with Rip and Beth, but Rip, like I said, not just voice of reason, but just understanding the moment, right? Like with Beth, like when she was being prideful, not afraid to admit that she wanted to go, because she doesn't know how to be vulnerable, a la Casey. Like Rip just knew what to say in the moment. Like he understands her. He understands what she needs in the moment. That's why I think they have a really beautiful relationship that is just chaotic. Maybe not toxic, but it's a little chaotic because Beth is chaotic. And I think Rip is trying to get a lot of the chaos out of him. And he's just growing into the man that, he's supposed to be. Like, obviously, he's learned from John. He's learned from experience. He's learned from the things he didn't have. And what we see now is a well-developed, murdering Rip. And he's my favorite character in the show. I love seeing his growth from him. And it definitely showed in the scene. Like he just understood what to say. He understood how to use his voice as authority when he needed to. And he also understands when not to be authoritative. Like he could have said, hey, you're going, or hey, stop fighting. Or he could have told Beth earlier, like, hey, I'm going to sit here and wait for you to tell me that you want to go with me on this trip. And he was able to adapt based on the situation. And again, I couldn't be more prouder of character development from season 1 to now. Like he's a man, not just a man because of how gangster he is or because of like the violent things he does, because he understands how to treat almost how to treat everybody based on who they are and based on the situation. Like he still has some room to grow. Carter, he definitely has some room to grow on some issues, but from where he started to where he is now, this is like a big achievement in character development for Taylor Sheridan in the Sheridan cinematic universe.
Great discussion. Let me pause because we got so wrapped up with this great dialogue. So Brittany talks about Rip. She says, "Sounds like me." No, so I'm sorry. Catch me outside. How about that? Referring to Beth and Summer fighting. Another comment from Brittany is Rip related to Cersei? I hope not. I don't. for the faith of humanity, I hope she's not related to Cersei. But no, I think Rip is more. If I was to compare Rip to a Game of Thrones character, I'd probably say Khal Drogo, maybe.
Jamie.
Okay, I can see Jamie. But Rip wasn't viewed as a bad guy though at first.
He should have been. People he's killed. God damn.
He did for good the family. So last but not least, let's talk about. So after the dinner scene, John and Rip have a conversation in the other room. After John clears the table, and some nuggets by John, man. Some cringy nuggets, but nuggets nonetheless. John talks about the handling of Beth growing up and like hoping that Beth would just get out of her wild ways, and how Beth has grown even more wild, and how he doesn't really understand her anymore. I don't think John ever really did understand Beth, but what really caught my attention is that John's talking about his kids, right? And he's like, out of my children, There's one I miss, which I think he's talking about Lee because Lee died in season 1. There's one I pity, Casey.
Pity first. Pity
second. Yeah, Casey. The one I regret, I was like, "Fuck!" Not regret though, Jamie. And the one I envy.
At least he's acknowledging him as a child because earlier he said, "That's my only son." When referring to Casey, so hey.
Which threw me off. Between him saying that in the same episode, what changed? I don't know what changed. Was this a moment of anger when he said that? I just have one son. I don't know what changed with that.
That's a great question. I think when he's talking to, I think what changes is who he's talking to. With Rip, I'm really trying to get a handle on John and Rip this season because there should be some dynamic changing between them. And I think John was trying to force the dynamic change last season. Like, hey, come live with me in my house. And like Rip could only see John as
his boss,
different type of paternal figure, like a boss, like a mentor, sensei, if you will. Like, and the dynamic change from that to son-in-law, when I think John has always seen Rip as some type of son, but like a distant son, at least blood-wise. But I'm interested in seeing like when that shift is going to happen. Like, Rip is still calling him sir, and maybe in some families you call the head of the household sir forever, regardless of your screwing his wife with his daughter. But like I think we should see some dynamic change. So like when he's talking about his children and he's talking about alluding to Jamie, I don't know, like I feel like part of it is John kind of making way for Rip to take Jamie's place as son, but there's not enough there with their dialogue to support it. So maybe it's just kind of hopeful, but I don't know what to make of that. Also, like, wouldn't it be kind of controversial for him to tell Clara that Jamie's not his son? Like, maybe he's told her. Like, those are some off-screen things that I think should be seen. That's kind of a plot hole that I found in that episode, but
I took that with Clara as him being mad at Jamie, not him admitting that Jamie is not biologically his son. After everything that has transpired in the previous season with him being AG and pretty much doing what Jamie does, I ain't take that as him admitting that that's not biologically his son to Clara.
Yeah, that was a hard scene to watch of him just talking about his kids, and you see him just kind of like reflect a lot. And it was hard for him, to hear him say that he regrets Jamie because although Jamie has done bad things, he's also done a lot of things to protect John and to protect the family. So I think also John maybe doesn't see some of those things sometimes.
I also took that scene as John kind of reflecting on the new world he's entering as governor. Is like, hey, basically he's saying like, it's like the Game of Thrones thing. Like everybody wants to scheme, everybody wants to plot. Like, and like that's a world he's not used to. Like he wants people to come shake his hand and come knock on my door, have a meeting. And so much of his world is subtle, and he's really old to be opting into this new world, trying to learn these new tricks. And he was just reflecting with Rip, like, hey, like the world we're entering, the world that I've entered in as governor, it takes me so far away from the things that I know and I love. And what's interesting is the very next scene is they're saddling up, eating breakfast, getting ready to saddle up to take this trip because that's where he's comfortable, right? That's his happy place. Even though, you're in the mountains, obviously we got wolves on the loose. Like there's so much danger and so many things that can happen. And he's just comfortable there. Like this is what he, yeehaw, so like I took that scene really as just him kind of bitching about the job that he has and does not want and how much he would just rather be in his element.
And to add on to that too, I took that as well as John kind of conceding to, look, I don't get Beth, but you do. And anything that comes up, and any type of situation or issues that come out of this, you're gonna be the lead on that to be the Beth handler per se, to keep not keep Beth in check, but to reel in Beth when she acts out, because like John was over that dinner scene. He was over it. He was like fuck it, like I give up. There's nothing I can do. Like she's not listening to me. And Rip, being the Beth whisperer, was able to like diffuse the situation the best way that he could, without much more bloodshed that could have been. And I think John seen that, because I don't think John actively has seen Rip calm Beth down or have a situation to where they come to an agreement about something and they can just call it a day. And I think John's witnessing Rip how far he has come along with Beth. I think John, which John always has a respect for Rip, he always will. But I think John has a newfound respect for Rip in that regard of how he handles Beth. But no, that was a powerful scene, because you never really, very rarely you hear John talk about all four of his kids in that manner, especially in one time. And it made me cringe. It made me cringe, especially when you coincide child with regrets. That's rough. That's tough. And to say it out loud that's very, very tough. I don't know. I didn't know where to go with that. I didn't know where to go with that. And that's why I hope that Jamie finds a way to like find peace in his character and like move forward and grow a backbone, because it's like everybody's like kind of down on him right now. Everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was really hard to watch, especially like if you've had maybe like a strained relationship with a parent. You don't know like how they think about it, how they reflect upon that, how they think about you. So it also just kind of got me in my feelings like, oh, like how would like my parent like refer to me? So yeah, it got me in my feelings a little bit.
I also thought there was like a little opening for John to embrace Rip a lot more. And it was like this pregnant pause. And he's like, okay, I'll see you at breakfast in the morning. Like, again, it's for Beth, for Casey, for John. In this episode, each one of them struggles in these one-on-one moments with somebody with vulnerability in different ways, right? Casey goes to the other side of the house on the steps and cries. Beth does not know how to just tell her husband, hey, I want to go with you on this trip, right? John does not know how to tell Rip, thank you for being able to handle Beth in a way that I can't. And actually, you are actually a more of a son to me than the one I regret, right? So will they all learn how to deal with this vulnerability? Next on the Dutton show.
So in the show, the next morning, it seemed like the ass crack of dawn, like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. They pretty much pack up the horses and they get ready for this cold camp to bring the cattle back to the ranch. And this is long. I love the show, man, but the country music, bro. God, I don't fuck with the country music, dog. These long and they play the whole fucking song. Hold on. Let me get this out first. Like, and it's not like country songs I can rock with. It's always like some random ass singer I never heard of before, some honky tonk beat that I'd never heard of before, and it's like the long 3-minute montage of like doing whatever they're doing, whether it's breaking the horse or riding a horse over the pasture or branding cattle. It's like, bruh, I could have done without that, man. Just give me a nice little instrumental, man, and I'm gonna be cool with it, man.
It looks like a really long Dodge Ram commercial. Like you see them packing up the trucks and loading them up. So yeah.
This is our Hey man, somebody who eats at Texas Roadhouse a lot. I fuck with it. I fuck with it, man. My barber's from Mississippi. He plays country music videos on the TV while he's cutting my hair.
Oh, shit.
I love that shit now, man. Who knew? Who knew? I think it's the perfect backdrop to the show. Like it fits perfectly. Like I don't know what to say, man. It's perfect scoring.
Man, play some shit I know. Play something like I can jam. Play some Tim McGraw. Play some Garth Brooks. Play some like Clint Blacks. Play something I know. Like don't play these cats. Was that even a popular country singer that song that played out? I never heard that song before.
They would call you a hipster. Timberlake. Like Drake.
Give me some Tennessee whiskey. Give me some Chris Stapleton, dog. Give me something I can fuck with. But no, man. All in all, what were you guys' thoughts on this episode? All in all,
yes, I think it was crazy. It was toxic, like I said at the beginning. Hopefully, this means a turning point for Beth, and then hopefully some more like different types of action in the next episodes.
See.
Yeah, like I very much like this. I really like this episode. I was really excited to watch it that second time, which is a clear indicator for me. Like, okay, I really, really like an episode. I love, like I said, I love the one-on, like last episode. I love the one-on-one scenes. And they show so much about what the story the show wants to tell, like the themes that this story wants to encapsulate. And this week is about common ground, and we see how different characters find common ground with other characters in different ways. I very much enjoyed it. Really looking forward to next week and seeing how having all these characters in this limited space. Usually when we have episodes in shows where a bunch of characters in one space, it gets really dramatic really quickly, right? Think Allison and damn, I just forgot my girl name, man. Fucking Queen, man. Rhaenyra, god damn. Spoke too much, man. But like, just remember that scene with like all the kids and everything, and you know, Aemon gets his eye taken out. So, but when we get all these characters in one space, it usually leads to a lot of drama, a lot of conflict, and I'm just interested to see what it looks like.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Tristan, Marcy, thank y'all so much again for this debate and talking about the show. You guys are, just so y'all know, Yellowstone, our podcasts have done really, really good the last couple of weeks over our podcast website. So great job, y'all. So for anybody who wants to talk about the show or y'all want to cover any other show, please follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Watchers Basements. Please like, subscribe. Road to 200. We're very, very close. I believe last time I checked, we're like 178 or something. So please hit us up, man. Leave comments, subscribe, and Brittany does a great job of like scheduling episodes as well. So you can go to YouTube, see what we have to come over the next couple of weeks. We're covering a lot of shows: Gangs in London, Yellowstone. Our Wednesday, the show Wednesday on Netflix, the Addams Family spinoff is on. That breakdown is on the podcast as well on YouTube as well. So please like, subscribe. I appreciate it. Give us a 5-star rating. Again, for myself, Tristan, Marcy, episode 5, Yellowstone, season 5 comes to an end. Can't wait for episode 6 this Sunday. Thank you so much for your time, and we are out.